It is so funny. One of the biggest criticisms about anime that just drives me up the wall is that all anime features children. That there is no anime out there that has adults in it. That all stories features 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, especially romance. No anime, why can't we have adult romance stories, even though we have, literally that's in this season, but they did an early start of it, which is Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You. But now, to the point of this video, Love Unseen Beneath the Clear Night Sky. It's a story about college students. Hey, it's right there. The thing that always drives me crazy about that statement is that when people claim that, and I can literally name a whole bunch of them in each season, but nobody watches them. They're right there, but nobody watches them. There's one right here, but will anybody watch it? Nope, probably not. Based on the memberships that I'm seeing, probably nobody's gonna watch the show. But anyways, joke and rant aside, the thing that I deal with on a regular basis, that aside, yes, I have watched the first episode of Love Unseen Beneath the Clear Night Sky, and so far, it's okay. It's pretty okay. I like a lot of what it's doing, but I will admit there's one element that kind of frustrates me, and that's really around Kakeru, our main character. He has a lot of, trauma in his mind that seems to come up in very odd situations. It almost feels like exposition dump in the first episode. Hey guys, so this is what I'm dealing with. Even though it doesn't really apply to the situation, I need to bring this up right now so that you know what I'm going through. It doesn't mesh well. So I'm hoping that now that they've got that out of the way, maybe potentially going forward, it'll be a lot more smoother going forward, because at its core, there is a interesting hook here. The interesting hook, obviously, to this series is the fact that we have our female love interest, Koharu. She's blind. So this is a story about an individual with a lot of issues that he's dealing with, now seeing somebody that is blind enjoying her life, and it doesn't really quite make sense to him. And I think that can kind of open the door to some really good storytelling if they do it properly. And I think also they're doing a decent job of presenting the elements of and the struggles of being blind, but yet also finding ways to get around those and adapt to a world of people that are not blind. So anyways, this is my thoughts on the first episode, so let's jump right into it. First things first, what is it about? Like I mentioned before, it's about Kakeru, and Kakeru, yes, we see a lot of his backstory is the fact that he was raised by a single mother, and that he was kind of moving from house to house, and it kind of led to him being someone that's very, very closed off. He doesn't like to open up to individuals. He likes to kind of blend in with the group, read the room and blend in, don't stand out. And I think it's probably the fact that, he didn't want to create more problems for his mother. He didn't want to create conflict with other individuals, and that sort of happened to be another issue that his mother has to, deal with. But that aside, yes, he's somebody that doesn't really like to stand out much. But unfortunately for him, his friend, his roommate, decides to drag him to a mixer and get out there and meet other people. And this is a time where we get to see a lot of Kakeru's personality. He finds people that, try to have a lot of fun and be goofy, to be kind of cringy. When he sees some person confessing to somebody else, he starts to criticize him, saying that this is somebody that he doesn't really like that much, somebody that likes to stand out, somebody that's trying too hard to stand out, that kind of stuff. But yeah, his roommate's trying to kind of get him out there more, decides to bring him over to another table where you have two girls that are sitting there separate from everybody else to kind of meet them, at which point we meet our main girl, Koharu, and Yuko. Now, Koharu, very quickly, he realizes she's kind of staring blankly at him. He's like, who is she looking at? And then at some point, she starts to swipe at the table before her friend Yuko points out where her cup is, at which point they establish that, yes, she's actually blind. And following their meeting, we have this little period of time where the four of them are walking together down the street, and Yuko, Koharu's friend, confronts Kakeru about potentially becoming one of these student guides. The student guides at the university that they're going to is essentially people that will help other individuals who have disabilities. And it seems like Yuko, after meeting Koharu, decided to become one of these individuals. And Yuko, knowing that Kakeru is going to one of Koharu's classes, decides to ask him, hey, would it be okay if you can become one of these student guides so that you can help her out during that period of time? This whole thing kind of turns into a conflict for Kakeru. Again, he's somebody that doesn't like to rock the boat. He doesn't like to stand out. He doesn't like to create conflict. But now somebody that is very kind of forward towards him, pressing upon him the idea of becoming one of these student guides, he's not able to say no because he's not used to, pushing back on things. So this kind of leads in him saying, I'll think about it before this girl goes, okay, give me your contact information so I can check with you later on. He's like, crap, I can't tell this girl no right now. Eventually they get to Koharu's apartment, and as they're going to separate from her, they start to see some fireworks going off. She ends up confessing that she one day wants to set off fireworks with her friends, which doesn't really make sense to Kakeru because She can't see them. Why would you want to set off something that you can't see? Why would you want to shoot off fireworks in a world that's completely dark? Why would you want to see fireworks in a world that's completely dark? This is something that doesn't really make sense to him. Cut the next day, we have the class that, yes, he's taking with Koharu, and the entire time it seems like he can't even take his eyes off of her. She ends up dropping her bookmark. He picks it up for her. She's taking notes with her little, machine. He's like, what kind of machine is that? Is that for, taking notes or something? But it seems like he's still, set on his mind that he doesn't want to get involved with her. And there's, a lot of conflict with him and the idea that, he's frustrated with himself because he's feeling pity for her when he knows that's a wrong thing to do. He feels disgusted that when she drops her cane, he's like, crap, I hate the fact that I hesitated to go over there and help her. And at the same time, I looked around the room to look for somebody else who would possibly step in instead. There's a lot of frustrations that he's having because he's used to not being involved with people, yet right here he keeps wanting to be involved and being disgusted by himself, which he ends up helping her out, and they eventually sit down together and talk. She kind of makes a joke about the fact that she has this vending machine that is her vending machine, that she knows exactly which buttons to press, but in actuality it's because her friend Yuko told her which the buttons to hit. She ends up showing him how she's able to function a smartphone despite the fact that she can't see as well, which is kind of interesting. It all kind of leads into this inner struggle that Kakeru has, and the idea that he's somebody that because of his circumstances, he has created these walls, and yet he knows full well that he can easily get past these walls if he only just kind of opens himself up. He's struggling constantly with what he can and cannot say, and not wanting to stretch out too far, not wanting to step on any toes or anything like that. It again is getting into a lot of the issues that he himself has sort of created for himself because of his own life circumstances. But yeah, eventually she does have him add her to her phone, and he ends up noticing her profile picture, which is what I'm assuming are white spider lilies, or I think they're beach spider lilies or something like that, which sort of does have its own little message there, but that's pretty much the gist so far with the first episode of Love Unseen Beneath the Clear Night Sky. So again, my thoughts on the show so far. I do think Kakeru's story is so far okay. Again, I think it's just more of a problem with how it's being presented, because it's like they're like having a mixer, or they're walking down the street and he's constantly thinking about man, if only my mom didn't go through that, and I wouldn't be struggling with this, and gosh darn it, why is she so happy? I couldn't be that way because my mom. She's so good at communicating and she's always smiling even though she's blind. I could never say I'm a child of a single mother with a smile on my face. It's like, why are we constantly bringing this up? There is it's a writer thing. I really do feel like this writer, at least right here, isn't really portraying this properly, or at least it's being too exposition dumpy. But it's putting my issues with that aside, I think overall the episode's solid, because I think this is a legitimate problem that somebody would face in dealing with the way that their mind has sort of formed over many years of dealing with that lifestyle. Because I was in this lifestyle, it made me closed off. And now, again, like I said before, which I think is sort of the essential aspect of the story, now I'm presented with somebody, which is pretty much a really bad thing to do, by the way. Because I'm presented with somebody who has a deeper issue than what I feel my own issue is, I am struggling with the fact that they're able to be happy and I'm not. How are they able to deal with so many struggles that I would never be able to deal with, but yet be so happy, when mine that are so much less of problems make me unhappy? It is that whole thing. It is literally putting greater weight to somebody else's problem than your own, which again, like I said before, is not a healthy thing to do. Everybody's struggles are more impactful to them individually. Everybody deals with trauma and issues differently, so you can't really weigh them on a scale. You can't put her blindness onto a scale and go, my issues with, being raised by a single mother on a scale, and expect it to give you a value that makes sense. It's really in each individual how they deal with their traumas and their issues, and yes, in some cases, how well they hide it. There's no doubt that Koharu finds this to be a struggle. It's just that my assumption is that she's dealt with it her entire life, and so it's basically second nature to her. Now, granted, we might find out later on that she, became blind at age 5 or something like that. It could have been a sudden or sort of an over time, regression of her eyesight. We don't really know yet, but that aside, I still think at the core, Kakeru's concept here is good. And I think, again, presented with Koharu, it will be a cool story element to get into with him sort of seeing somebody with such a positive nature and how that can help him get out of his shell. I think probably the more direction he'll go for is the idea of him helping her out because she's such a positive nature, or at least he's being swept up by her nature and will end up getting swept up into her dreams. And as he's with her, slowly over time go, if she can do it, I can do it. If she's able to do this thing, I can do this thing. And it might end up being a very positive impact for him. But I like Koharu a lot so far. One, especially being the fact that her seiyuu. She has an incredible seiyuu with a very beautiful voice. Her character so far is she's very much a magnet. And I think that might end up being a lot to her character. Now, it does show that with that whole mixer, there was some nasty individuals that upon finding out that she was blind, they sort of navigated away. At some point, Kakeru noted that, their table was almost like a deserted island. And she's like, what are you talking about, deserted island? There was nobody there. Like, there was like this barrier around them that nobody crossed, and that he and his friend end up stepping across. It was because they found out that she was blind, they stayed away. There is an element here that, yes, a lot of people find somebody with a disability to be sort of a hamper, that you don't want to get involved with it. I do like a lot of how Kakeru's character sort of addressed that. But yes, a lot of people are going to see that and go, no, I don't want those problems. There's a lot of things involved. But I think there's also the other side, which is sort of what Kakeru was getting into, which is you hate yourself when you're around individuals like that because you keep overthinking things, or you apologize for things, or you sort of hate yourself for how you react to them. Like, again, for him specifically, he heard the cane hit, but he doesn't want to get involved, and so he hates himself for sort of, hesitating, and then also hates himself for looking for somebody else to possibly step in instead of him. I don't want to get involved with this, and now I feel bad because there's nobody else to be there for it, and that made me feel upset. It's like this roller coaster thing. Even later on when he's hanging out with Koharu, I like that sort of getting into how everything that he says, he sort of overthinks. She's talking about the vending machine and how it's like Russian roulette whenever you're trying to pick a button and you don't know what the button goes to. There's no braille on the machine to read it or anything like that. So whatever you hit, we'll see what we get. And so it's like Russian roulette. And he says it sounds pretty fun, actually. And then he catches himself and says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. He's making light of the situation and saying that's a good thing, when in fact, if she has to deal with it all the time, it's probably something that's really frustrating. Again, he's assuming she's offended by it. I think there is an element where sometimes people don't realize that when you, and some people are different, obviously, when you're conversing with somebody, you read them, and you understand what is an offensive thing or not. You understand when somebody's being good-natured or ill-natured. Sometimes you'll make assumptions, but for the most part, not everybody's out to get you. And I think he's assuming that she might get that impression, which I think Koharu is pretty used to it. She kind of accepts it, says, no, that's fine. Yeah, it is kind of fun at times. It's not the first time she's ever talked to somebody. Koharu obviously has been dealing with this for a long time. She knows how to communicate to people about it. She knows what people's assumptions are going to be. She knows when people are going to be questioning certain things, and so she knows how to kind of respond to them. So despite the fact that he's constantly overthinking things, it's not the same for her. I think the thing that I enjoy most about the show so far is just Koharu's positive nature, which could end up being like a block or a front that she puts up to cover her actual pain. A lot of people that are very positive are hiding a lot of pain, or that she's sort of just learned to cope with her issues with that positivity. But I think that positivity is sort of like a magnet for some people. Not all people, obviously. I mean, Yuko is drawn to it, and Kakeru's being drawn to it. But I like that positive nature and how that's sort of leading into showing all those difficulties that she faces and how she's able to overcome them. Because I think in the end, I do like sort of this way of showing information about disabilities while giving a positive story. So right here, we've already learned about, like how they make the paving to where people that are blind can see, and thus it's informative to individuals. Don't block that because that's what that is. It might not be very obvious to most people what that paving right there is for. That's who it's for. Don't block it. The idea of the machine that she uses to, take notes, having braille, all that kind of stuff. There's like these little things that it's showing how they overcome. I mean, shoot, I learned something this episode. And yes, I knew that phones have, speech systems that will help people by reading out what's on the screen. I just didn't know it was for completely blind individuals. Mainly around the idea of like how difficult it is to tap certain areas to, do the voice to, text, all that kind of stuff. It is, again, kind of cool to at least get a little bit of information about how they use those systems, even though those systems are already there. The whole paving thing, I know that's what it was there for, but, seeing how it's utilized, that kind of things. Not everybody on a daily basis experiences seeing somebody have to use those things and have these disabilities. So it's been cool so far, and it's not too much of a, I guess, hitting it over your head. Like, it is something that she deals with, but she's not letting it, basically define her. For sure, like Koharu and her struggles and how she kind of draws Kakeru into her life has been sort of the interesting part about this entire story. But yeah, one of the interesting things about this episode was for sure the white spider lilies at the end of it with her profile. I don't want to expect this is going to be one of those like tragic love stories, the whole tragic girlfriend stories, that something's going to happen to Koharu at some point after he gets drawn to her, something like that. I don't know. It's just like that opening scene sort of does make you question. The opening scene is something like, even after I die, I want to live on, or something like that. And I'm like, wait, are they implying that she has like maybe the reason that she lost her vision is because she got like a tumor or something like that? Or is something going to kill her off? Question mark. I don't know. The reason why the flower at the end catches my attention is because it looks like a red spider lily, but it's white. I don't think I've ever actually seen white spider lilies. We see red spider lilies a lot. Red spider lilies often represents, death and whatnot, goodbyes and stuff like that. So like, shoot, 86 loved using those as representations and whatnot. But white spider lilies is different. It says that it symbolizes purity, new beginnings, and a positive outlook on life. That definitely seems like Koharu. That definitely seems like her. That's literally her. So I'm not sure who decided to pick that for her, but it'd be interesting to see if that sort of symbolizes something like that, something that she loves at a flower and wants to eventually one day be able to actually see it, something like that. Or maybe like a friend or something like that likes it. But yeah, wrapping it up though, I think one of the lines is sort of the most interesting to me, which was what he says after finding out that she wants to shoot off fireworks with the friends. He said, "How could you shoot off fireworks in a world that's completely dark?" Probably signifying the idea that how could you go through the process of doing something when you can't see anything? Why would you try to bother doing something that you technically shouldn't be able to do? Then he says, how could you see fireworks in a world that is completely dark? How could you basically experience it? How would you be able to consume it? You're going to shoot that thing off, but how are you going to be able to, get something out of it? And then he says, I couldn't tell if she was all talk or if she really meant it. I'm thinking that's him really kind of wondering if she's lying to herself. Are you really looking to do that kind of thing, or are you just kind of playing it up? That's something that I would like to do, but I know that I can't do that kind of thing. An element of like, wow, you actually have a desire to do something like that where I never had that desire. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But anyways, that's my thoughts so far on Love Unseen Beneath the Clear Night Sky. Again, it has a lot of potential in there. And the way that it's portraying a lot of stuff is really solid. Visually, it's not the greatest looking show, but I'm not really expecting too much for this show. But yeah, a lot of my hold up is really around Kakeru and his just randomly bringing up stuff for the sake of acknowledging what his past has been like in really odd places. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. Hope you found it informative. If you did, hit the like button down below. Until next time, take care.